Alright, so this first ICP assignment was a pretty brief, quick, easy introduction to Python and some of the differences between Python 2 and Python 3 and some of the um, general syntax rules for Python 3. So we'll just dive right into this, keep it pretty quick and short. We were asked to put in a Python string here and replace remove two arbitrary characters from the string, and then print that string in reversed. And then further, we were supposed to have the user input two numbers and just perform some operations on them. I chose to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So running this, delete and reverse. Let's make this a little bigger. I'll type in the word Python. And here is my string printed in reverse with the H and O removed. There's tons of ways you can move strings from Python strings, but I just chose this replace operation. I replaced the H and O with an empty string, and this colon -1 is just a sort of a fancy quick syntax way to print or read or return strings in reverse. And now time to perform some operations. So we're going to enter our first number x, we'll call it 3. Enter our second number y, we'll call it 5. And here's our result, x plus y, 8, x minus y, -2, x times y is 15, and then since we're using Python 3, though these are integers, as I catch up the integer over them, it still returns a float value, which is, in my opinion, more often what the programmer is going to have in mind. So I think that's a big advantage that Python 3 has, returning these float values in spite of integers being used. So this is the actual value there. Next, we were asked to enter a sentence that contains the word Python, and any instance of that word we are supposed to replace with the word pythons, as in plural. So we'll run that here real quick. I'll put in just a random sentence, Jimmy, Python, Python, Python. And it's going to return Jimmy, Pythons, Python, Pythons. So it only recognizes Python whenever it's a capital letter. The ICP assignment didn't state to check otherwise, so in my opinion this is working as intended. With a capital P, Python, it will replace with the plural Pythons string. And yeah, lastly, I just included a wiki that you can read more in depth on my GitHub page, just explaining a few quick differences between Python 2 and 3. I cover briefly how the print syntax is no longer just print followed by whatever string or input. It is actually a function, and you can put anything in here. You can put strings, integers, you can put tuples of mixed types. Also, like I discussed in the arithmetic operations earlier, in Python 2, if you were to divide two integers, you'd receive an integer value, so 3 divided by 2 is going to be 1. In Python 3, as you saw, it returns a float, so 3 divided by 2 is actually 1.5. And lastly, another example, the input function was named raw input in Python 2. In Python 3, it's just named input, and it does enforce a type, so if the user in Python 2 were to enter a mathematical operation, it would return the result of that operation instead of the string, while Python 3 would just return the string of the operation. So you can explicitly define what kind of types that you want the user to input here. We could cover a number of differences, but at the end of the day, Python 2 has reached its end-of-life status. It's no longer being supported. No more bug fixes or updates, and Python 3 really is the way of the future. Most popular modules and imports are already supporting Python 3, so it only makes sense to develop in Python 3, excluding, if you're a large company and you've written a ton of code in Python 2, it makes sense to do some more development in Python 2, but most companies are on their way to porting their code over to Python 3. So that about covers it. Nice, easy, quick introduction to Python, and I look forward to the future assignments.